The Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs hosted the Columbia India Energy Dialogue on May 18th. This was a flagship event of the Center's India program held in partnership with Columbia Global Centers, Mumbai. Dr. Melissa Lord, Director of Research, along with Dr. Kaushik Deb, Senior Research Scholar from the Center on Global Energy Policy, discussed this India program and India's energy transition.
So we've set up this program looking at all things energy, environment, climate in India about a year and a half back at the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University. The impetus of doing this is the fact that India is probably already the world's most populous country. It's likely to become the world's second largest economy by the middle of the century. And its energy consumption is amongst the fastest growing about 150% over the next 3 or 4 decades. So everything that India does is going to matter really very much for the world's energy and environmental and climate goals. Especially choices that India makes over the next 3 or 4 years will be pivotal to whether the world is able to maintain its carbon budget or not. India has made some very, very strategic choices in trying to deal with issues around both energy poverty as well as decarbonization. Our attempt as part of the India program is to support this decarbonization process by making sure that our research is relevant, is policy actionable, and also is done in a manner that's collaborative with think tanks, universities, and other stakeholders in India, so that what we are able to bring to, say, government or corporates in India is actually useful and important in being able to meet their own priorities.
And as the Center on Global Energy Policy was approaching its 10th anniversary, we were faced with a series of crises around an energy crisis, a climate crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and a food crisis. And we thought about what are the biggest impact places that we could be spending our time as we came up to our 10th anniversary. And the work here in India and looking at India's decarbonization over time was one of the top, just one of the things that we absolutely had to do and had to be a part of to support.
The two important streams that have guided India's energy transition policies over the last, let's say, decade or so have been, one, focused on removing and reducing energy poverty, and two, helping the country progress towards a more decarbonized energy system. And that's really how we've been focusing on streamlining our research, and that's what forms the basis of our research strategy. So focusing on the first one, there have been a slew of policy measures in India ensuring universal access to electricity, reducing use of biomass in rural areas, replacing it with LPG, as well as making sure that every individual and household has access to modern energy forms and at sustainable quantity levels. Now that has very significant implications in terms of being able to access and source all of that energy, so issues around energy security, but also how that energy is used and used more efficiently, and finally whether the sources of those energy are sustainable. So that forms a big part of the way we look at India's energy strategy and the support that we are seeking to provide as part of the India program and the research that we do. The second part of India's energy program and energy strategy that's been important to us is the efforts towards decarbonization. The rapid ramp up in renewable energy capacity that's happened in the last 7 years in India, increasing efforts to increase green hydrogen as part of its energy mix, a larger outlay from the government in all of these efforts by increasing the outlays that have happened in the union budget, the sovereign green bonds that India has issued earlier this year. And all of these efforts are a significant ramp up over what's happened in India historically, but the increase in ambition is even more heroic. And that effort would need support both by way of policy analysis, but also by way of making sure that there is enough analytical support available to private industry and finance so that they can also ramp up their efforts and make sure that India's energy priorities, both by way of reducing energy poverty as well as decarbonization, are achieved. One of the biggest challenges in terms of India's decarbonization strategy is trying to decarbonize the electricity sector. While the ramp up in renewable energy capacity has been dramatic over the last 7 years, the increase in ambition is even more heroic. The one dark cloud overhanging the electricity sector is the huge amount of distribution sector financial losses that exist. And until the country is able to find a way of resolving this issue, it will be hard to make sure that the growth in any kind of green energy forms in electricity is financed in a sustainable and adequate manner going forward. Given the ramp up in emission, we need a lot more finance, and that's unlikely to come through unless the distribution sector reforms are realized. The other part of increasing decarbonization of the electricity sector is making sure that the transmission network and the growth in transmission network is sufficient and adequate for the increase in renewable energy capacity that's being expected and that's being generated, especially given the fact that renewable energy is, unlike other thermal forms of energy, is intermittent and implies different constraints and expectations from the transmission network. And that's going to be a second big challenge in terms of India's decarbonization of the electricity sector. But then, I think finance also remains a challenge.
So when we look at the different challenges, this is why it is so important to build partnerships that we're building with the Global Center here in Mumbai, across the finance communities, the technical communities, across all the different universities and think tanks, bringing people together for dialogue so that we can actually identify the biggest challenges and figure out paths forward.